How is everyone today? Boy, do I have a doozy for you. Did you know that supermodel and plus size model Ashley Graham claims to have been traumatized by her Barbie doll when she was a little girl? She opened up about this on the Today Show, and People magazine wrote about it. So here's the headline here. Ashley Graham opens up about Barbie's impact on her mental well-being. Says it left her traumatized. All right, first of all, when you hear about kids being traumatized, what do you think of? You think of things like somebody broke into their house and ransacked it. The kid fell and broke his leg and broke his arm or was hit by a car, or his little puppy got away from him and got hit by a car, or a parent is receiving treatment for cancer and is very sick, or maybe there was a school shooting, a shooting where the kid goes to school. Those are the things that traumatize a child. But a doll leaving a little girl traumatized? What's wrong with that picture? The word traumatized is just thrown around and tossed around. Or maybe Ashley Graham really was traumatized, in which case something deeper must have been going on in her life. It's just a doll, a toy. All right, let's see here. She says, reflecting on her reaction to the Graham inspired Barbie. Yes, there was a Barbie doll inspired by Ashley Graham, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a minute. She emphasized the importance of representation for young girls. I think this whole thing about representation in dolls has gone overboard. Now, I don't mean dolls that represent different ethnicities and races and hair colors and skin colors, skin tones. There are even Barbie dolls with artificial limbs. One's in a wheelchair. There's a Ken version that has an artificial leg. I mean, that's within reason, but Ashley Graham goes overboard, and I'm going to tell you why in just a moment. Graham shared that having a Barbie doll that resembled her body shape while growing up would have positively impacted her self-worth, preventing comparison and trauma. There we go with that word again, trauma. What's going on here? When you hear about kids undergoing trauma, again, as mentioned before, you think of their house burning down or the house being destroyed by a tornado and them being displaced and being homeless, or somebody with a life-threatening illness or disease or some kind of devastating accident or family strife like divorce or abuse. Who gets traumatized by a doll? Well, I'm sure Ashley Graham isn't the only one who's felt this way in this overly woke, overly entitled society we live in. If this Barbie doll she had when she was a little girl impacted her self-worth in such a negative way, one has to wonder, what were the parent-child dynamics? It seems to me that the parent-child dynamics, or whoever your caretaker is, sometimes it's an aunt, sometimes it's a grandmother, grandfather, it seems to me that whoever's the primary caretaker of that child would have a much more significant influence on their self-worth rather than some little doll that's this long and this wide, made of rubber. How does a doll have more impact on a young person's self-esteem and sense of self and development emotionally than their own parents? Makes you wonder if the bond between Ashley and her parents was a really positive, strong one. She does admit to being traumatized. That's not something that the journalist is throwing around. That's a pretty significant word, which is completely out of proportion to what the alleged cause of this trauma is. When you hear of kids being traumatized, I should have mentioned this, it could also be sexual assault. That's trauma. This is a first world problem. When somebody says she was traumatized because the doll she played with as a child was skinny and didn't look like her, or she didn't have a body that was skinny like the doll. That's a first world problem. Meanwhile, hundreds of millions of little girls all over the world would love to have a doll and pretty clothes to put on the doll. They would love to have a doll to play with, but they don't have access to dolls or other toys. They don't have the money. And here's Ashley Graham whining as a child, how come she doesn't look like me? And Ashley says, I wouldn't have looked at myself in the mirror and thought, why do I have this and she has that, if the doll had been of a thicker body type. I had a Barbie doll myself when I was 8 or 9. I inherited it from my older sister. It was a novelty to have a Barbie doll. It was a novelty to inherit something from your older sister when she didn't want it anymore. At no time at all did I think that Barbie's body was realistic. When I was 9 or 8 and playing around with it a little bit, I actually thought that the body was unrealistic. Now, even though I was slender as a child, my hair was frizzy, not like shiny and silky looking and straight like Barbie's. At no point did I wonder why Barbie didn't have brown, frizzy, wild hair. And at no point did I wonder why my feet weren't as tiny proportionately as Barbie's. Instead, I always thought, gee, how come Barbie's feet are so small? I would never want small feet. I wouldn't be able to run and jump. And she has such small, tiny hands, I wouldn't be able to catch a ball. I was very athletic when I was a kid. I wouldn't want tiny feet and tiny hands. I thought her body was unrealistic. Her waist was like this, and then these ridiculously long legs and this short little torso. That's Ashley Graham showing the doll that was patterned after her. So apparently, when she was a kid, if she were playing with a doll, if she'd been playing with a doll that looked like that when she was a kid, I suppose we can assume she wouldn't have been traumatized during her childhood. A powerful request for inclusivity by Ashley Graham. So she presents this Barbie designed to resemble her features when she was on the Today Show, but she revealed that her request wasn't fully completed. They didn't put the cellulite. Oh, my little autism symbol fell off. Okay, so she says her request for cellulite representation was not fulfilled, highlighting the ongoing need for inclusivity in toy design. What in God's name? Inclusivity in toy design. It's just a toy. It's a doll. It's this big. It's unrealistic, first off, because it's this big rather than 5.5 feet tall. How many young children even know what cellulite is? When I was 8 or 9, I didn't know what cellulite was. Why is this stuff being brought on to kids? Why can't we just let kids be kids? Why must a doll have cellulite? Isn't that a grown-up thing? I've never seen a kid, I've never even seen a chubby kid with cellulite. Why did Ashley Graham want this doll to have cellulite? That's ridiculous. Why have all these imperfections on a doll when the whole concept of playing with a doll or most toys is based on fantasy in the first place? It's not based on reality. That's why when kids play with Barbie dolls, they do unusual things with the doll. They make it walk and maybe jump and maybe fly. maybe they voice it in a way that's unrealistic. They imagine that Barbie is riding an elephant or a unicorn or whatever and meeting Ken or Prince Charming or whatever. I mean, the whole thing about playing with toys and dolls is steeped in fantasy and imagination. Why do you want to bring cellulite into this? It's just absolutely outrageous. Now, here's an interesting concept. Look at Ashley Graham's face. She has the prominent cheekbones. She has full lips. I doubt those lips are mainly the result of injections because when lips have been plumped up repeatedly with injections, they have a fake look. They just don't look right. And I would say her lips are pretty natural. Her teeth are very white. She has rather large eyes that are spaced just the right amount apart. Her nose is pretty flawless and symmetrical. It's not a big honker or anything. How come Ashley Graham and other influencers who think like her never complain that Barbie's face is unrealistic? It's unattainable. How many people, how many women or teen girls have you ever encountered in your life who had a face like Barbie? The only ones we really see who kind of have a face like Barbie are movie stars. There are some movie stars who kind of look like Barbie, but when we go into the real world, like at work, coworkers, our bosses at work, at school, classmates, teachers, people we pass on the street, people we see in Walmart, people we see just in the daily activities of living, people we see at the gym as far as faces. Have you ever have you ever seen a woman who has a face like Barbie? I don't think I ever have. Even when I think about really beautiful movie stars, only several of them really can come close to that. But in regular life, you don't see anybody with a face like Barbie. How come Ashley Graham isn't insisting or requesting that Mattel manufacture a Barbie that has a realistic face, the face of the average woman, like a plain Jane face? How come she's not pushing to have a Barbie face that has signs of aging, for instance, or a big honker of a nose, or thin lips, jowls, big long forehead, small eyes that are close together, or a crooked nose, yellow teeth? That's all representation of what many, if not the vast majority, of women look like. How many women do you pass on the street who have bright white teeth and big doe eyes? In other words, a Barbie face. Even though there are many different varieties of Barbie, they're all based on a template when it comes to their face. So whether they're tan skin, pale skin, dark skin, short, tall, or thick, or using a wheelchair, or an artificial leg, straight hair, kinky hair, fuzzy hair, whatever, no matter how you slice it, the face is based on a cookie cutter. It's a template. Look at the faces of these Barbies. The eye color is different, but the facial structure is nearly identical. There are very subtle variations. For instance, the lips might be a little thicker in the darker skin Barbies. The pale skin Barbie has the thinnest nose, but the tan Barbie has the same kind of nose, but it's just a little bit wider. The dark Barbie has a wider nose. She has the widest nose. Her eyes are spaced a little further apart to correlate with that. But even though her nose is the widest of the three, it's still a nice looking nose in that it's symmetrical. It's not sticking out too much. It's not too long. It's not too wide. despite all those little variations, they all have a template face. And if you look at pictures, if you look at all the Barbie dolls out there, they basically have the same kind of face. It's a very beautiful face. Why isn't Ashley Graham and other influencers, why aren't they pushing for a Barbie who has a plain Jane face, such as the following? Look at these faces here. You'll never find a Barbie doll, or any doll for that matter, that's typically a glamour type doll, that has a face like these, unless the doll is some kind of evil character like a witch or something like that. Of course, we all know that if Barbie had a plain Jane face, she wouldn't sell very well. I mean, what little girl wants a plain Jane Barbie, a Barbie with a plain Jane face? She wants a Barbie with the face of a princess. She wants a very pretty Barbie, a beautiful Barbie. Well, likewise, if she wants her Barbie to have a beautiful face, why would she want a Barbie with cellulite on her legs? Why would she want a Barbie that has a wide block type middle and heavy thighs? The classic Barbie shape looks a lot better than the Ashley Graham model of the Barbie. Why would a little girl want a fat Barbie or a thick Barbie or whatever you want to call it when the very thin, svelte Barbie just looks better? How come Ashley Graham isn't pushing for a Barbie with sparse hair? Now, maybe there is a Barbie out there with alopecia, or maybe who's bald. I don't know. But every time I see a Barbie doll, she has this massive head of hair. Sometimes it's ridiculous. Sometimes the hair is really long and there's just a ton of it. That's not realistic. How many women do you know, have you run into, who have beautiful, thick ass heads of hair? Well, there's actually, I do see women out there with a lot of beautiful, thick hair like Barbies, but many women don't have that kind of hair. Of course, the argument could be made that the hair needs to be thick and full, so because little girls like to comb and brush Barbie's hair and play with it and put styles in it. Yeah, I understand that. But still, the bottom line is, that's not the reason Ashley Graham hasn't been pushing for a Barbie with stringy, limp, dull hair. You know that's not the reason. Oh, here's another feature of Barbie. Why isn't Ashley Graham calling for Barbies who represent poor people, poor women, women who can't afford the beautiful, fancy, glitzy clothes that Barbie always wears? How come Mattel doesn't come out with a homeless Barbie, one who's dressed in rags or a dirty looking t-shirt and cheap looking clothes? How come she always has such glitzy, wonderful clothes? There's no representation of impoverished women. Why not? How come Ashley Graham isn't pushing for that? The bottom line is this. We live in a pretty entitled country full of first world problems, people who are coddled, too insecure. Barbie has been around for decades. At no point when I had my older sister's Barbie doll did that rubber smelly thing. Yes, dolls stink. They smell. Maybe it's just my autistic nose, but that doll smelled. And I've handled other dolls, and they all have that same smell. Maybe dolls today don't stink, but at no point when I handled that doll did I ever wish I had a body like hers, or did I ever think her body was realistic, and at no point did I want her hair. I just saw it as a toy, a doll. That's all it is, an inanimate object. And when I was done playing around with it, I literally tossed it aside like a tennis ball. What was Ashley Graham thinking when she was playing with her Barbie doll as a child, such that it traumatized her? And it's not like she was 300 pounds when she was a child. I'm assuming she was chubby, but not so huge that wherever she went, people stared and gawked at her. So many kids are overweight anyways. So I think this goes much deeper, way deeper than a toy. It goes as far as the family dynamics. Something was awry in the household there that would lead to feeling traumatized as the result of a frickin' doll. Well, that's all for today's video. Please leave your comments about this. It needs to be discussed way more. And have a good day.